It's the final episode of the year, and on this episode of How Bad Can It Be, I figured we'd head into a rather odd time for horror, and that was the early 2000s. There was this post-Scream and pre-Saw gap in which the genre really didn't know what it wanted to be. Clearly, the teen slasher genre had run its course, but we hadn't quite entered the realm of torture porn that was looming on the horizon. In the meantime, it was sort of a throw it all against the wall and see what sticks approach, and one of the stickiest was the Scarecrow trilogy. This franchise burned bright for such a short period of time, pumping out 3 movies in 3 years, and compared to some of the schlock from the same era, I mean, how bad can it be? We head out into the cornfield back in 2002 with Scarecrow, and it has 3 credited screenwriters, so there's no way that this can be terrible. 3 totally different people all looked at this script, worked on it, and together saw it and said that this is the best that we can make it, and neither of the other 2 then said, hey wait, no, that's stupid, so it just has to be good. So there's this guy Lester, and he's made fun of by his classmates, and I think he's supposed to be in high school. None of these people look like teenagers. I mean, Tiffany Shepis is here, and she was around 23 at the time. And they tease Lester by calling him Scarecrow, and what the hell is this music? The film's director has a cameo.
Man, I should have been a movie director instead of this shit.
Get it? He's the director, and he's in his own movie saying that he should have been a director. Isn't that clever? There's a plate here with a tag that expires in 2003, so we're either in 2002 or 3 then. And Judy has to deal with Bully Guy, who again, is a high school student, even though his hairline is desperately trying to seek out the middle of his head. Her mother brings home a guy, and if you're a fan of Oingo Boingo or just, well, movie scores in general and love Danny Elfman, well, this is his brother, Richard, who is the filmmaker behind the insane film, The Forbidden Zone, which you must see, like right now. Lester and his Jinko jeans get heartbroken and then killed out by the old Scarecrow, made to look like a suicide, and the newspaper reporting it says that it's August of 1986? How is this the 80s? No one wore these clothes in the 80s, and if it's August, why are they in school? Very quickly, the Scarecrow is now alive and chops off his killer's head. He flips and wisecracks and sounds suspiciously like Freddy Krueger.
How's about I teach you a lesson?
Then, this is weird, a bunch of these kids go to the cornfield, but say that they're too old for this, and one of the girls says that it's like they're back in high school again, so apparently this is quite a while after Lester's death. The Scarecrow kills one, but then Judy's dad, who is also played by Richard Elfman, tells her that she's going to need skills in college soon, so I guess she's still in high school. I guess those high school dudes hooked up with some older women? One thing that's consistent whenever you see this guy is that he flips. He flips a lot. It's like they hired a performer for the Scarecrow and he said, hey, I can do this thing. And they were like, oh, that's cool. We're gonna have you do that one thing in every scene. I'm never sure if he's supposed to be supernatural or someone in a costume, because like in this scene, you can see that there's someone under the mask, but it's clearly Lester and he goes to visit his mom but can't kill her. And interestingly, he's not afraid at all to just show up in the daytime, and he pulls off his own head, so he's definitely not human. Then, hilariously, they shoot him 3 times, but apparently only filmed it once? So what did they do? They used the same footage 3 times in a row. Why would they do this? There didn't need to be 3 shots. Just use the take 1 time, put 1 sound effect in there, and you're done. There was no need to repeat it, especially if you don't have the footage. Then Judy drives away, so the Scarecrow catches up by, you guessed it, flipping. She sets him on fire, making sure to turn and walk away coolly, like she doesn't even need to look at it. Then we're told that this happened a while ago and are given updates on what happened to the people afterwards, and Judy is in college, so I guess it's a year later, and he's apparently taken her over. But then these guys say that this was all 2 years ago, so it's either 2004 or whatever here, or 1988. Well, Lester's alive, and yep, you can still see your mouth under that mask, guy. So everyone saw that and was like, oh yeah, we need more of that, please. So 1 year later in 2003, we got Scarecrow Slayer, now directed by David Latt, who is one of the founders of the Asylum, and I don't even think I need to comment on that. The opening gives us this confusing series of shots that borders on experimental art. We have a close-up of a farmer, an extreme close-up of the Scarecrow's face, a reaction from the farmer's son, and then this, whatever this is, watch it in slow motion, and it's the silliest effect you will ever see. The pitchfork is about 4 times the size of a standard one. Seriously, who would even be able to pick up a pitchfork of this size? And when the farmer is thrown onto it, it looks like it just goes through his body. We next get a shot of what I think is supposed to be Lester running away in the background. Perplexing. The Candyman is here, and he says he wrote a book back in 1972 about a scarecrow that killed his family and a frat initiation that has to steal one from a field. And meanwhile, Caleb says he trapped the demon in the scarecrow 25 years after encountering it. Now, 25 years after 72 is 97, but it's not likely he wrote the book right after it killed his family, so he probably trapped it earlier. And then these girls are in a car with tags that expire in August of 2002, so I'm assuming that's the year we're set in. One of the frat boys is accidentally shot, and Caleb now says that it was 35 years ago that his father was killed, and it was this scene from the intro. So if it's 02, that happened back in 1967, and if it came back 25 years later, he trapped it in 1992, 10 years before this. So, look, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be connected to the first, but if we ignore the clothes and stuff from the first one and go by that newspaper, that can be set in 1986, and this can still be the same entity from that one. The demon gave Lester revenge, and after that movie, the creature sought out old scores and was trapped 6 years later, and this is way too much thought to put into this. Anyway, David's soul now goes into the Scarecrow and kills Caleb. This version sadly doesn't throw out Freddy one-liners, which is pretty disappointing, and he comes after the rest of the students and only does his flippy flips at over an hour into the movie, and it's revealed that his goal is to turn his girlfriend into a Scarecrow too, but accidentally does it to his friend Carl in this, I'm gonna call it an effect, and they fight. Carl Crow gets chopped up and Dave Crow gets blown up, and that's it for this one. One more year later, and the epic trilogy was completed with 2004's Scarecrow Gone Wild. Yep, it's really called that. It starts with the Scarecrow, now very clearly a cheaper mask, and he cuts a girl's throat, although there's no visible wound, just blood. But it's just a story being told, and this guy mentions Justin and Kelly, which is an American Idol reference that was literally only relevant for a tiny portion of time, and that time was around 2003 or so that's probably when this was set. Jack here is Discount Paul Rudd, and their coach is a Shamrock, and as another initiation, they take pledges to the Scarecrow and tie one there, and he's stuck all night. But I mean, look at this. How does he not just get out of this? Anyway, Sam is diabetic and dies, so the Scarecrow awakens, of course, and starts getting revenge.
Totally Stallone.
Yo, I can quit anytime I want.
I don't have a joke for that. I just can't believe it's a line in this movie. So much of this one is pretty stupefying, like this choice of song.
She stripped down, her thumb fits oh so nice. She looked so fine, she had me thinking twice.
And they stay at the beach for a while, and fun fact that this is the same beach that the Planet of the Apes ends up with the Statue of Liberty. A couple of the frat boys bury their friend on the sand and then pee on his face after giving him sand boobs, and was this directed by David Ducatu? Then the movie stops dead in its tracks for one of the characters to have a musical number that actually does have a pretty glorious finish.
Swallow more than one man should.
And man, it's not like the first movie had a really top-notch character design for the villain, but it looked pretty cool. This literally looks like someone went to Spirit and bought a bagged costume that just said Scarecrow on the outside. Coach tells the story of yet another Scarecrow from the past, but his description of the story doesn't sound like either of the other movies, so it's likely yet another incident. They're able to bring Sam out of his coma, which stops the Scarecrow, and it jumps 3 weeks, and the coach is okay. But oh no, Sam is taken over by the Scarecrow and kills almost everyone else, and even has electrical powers? He transfers into Jack, who then kills himself, and oh yeah, I forgot that this is also Olivia Munn's first gig. She's literally in this one scene as girl number 1. Don't confuse her with girl number 2 or 3 though, and sadly, this is a more meaningful role than her stint as Psylocke. And that was it for the series. 3 rapid-fire movies that aren't connected to each other, released really closely together, and apparently a 4th entry was going to happen called 10,001 Scarecrows, but it never happened. So there you have it, 3 movies that are not connected, don't really have any sort of a timeline that makes any sort of sense, and in terms of how bad could it be, these are pretty damn bad, but actually very fun. I enjoyed these quite a bit. They had a good throwback feel to me. They felt very 90s goofball stuff, even though it was in the early 2000s. It still had that weirdo 90s flavor of just junk. Just junk cinema. The first one is especially silly in its badness. There's a lot of really odd choices that are made that are fun and enjoyable. So I did not mind watching these at all. They are pretty terrible, but I didn't mind it. If you've seen these and if you enjoy these, let me know below. If you think I'm crazy for actually having fun while watching these, tell me in the comments below. Leave me a comment. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this content. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of it. Share it out to the rest of the world if you want other people to see it. And if you want to help support the channel, you can go to patreon.com/movietimelines. These guys over here are my patrons, and they actually help keep the channel going, which you can do as well, and I would certainly appreciate it. And in the meantime, I'll see you next year for another great video. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.